Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Gachiakuta, Season 1.
Yep, Gachiakuta, Season 1, Episode 22. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and well, last week, Deer had a rough go with those cat fingers, kamikaze ghosts, whatever those things were that were coming out of Bundus's arm. So that was something. I thought that was a fun frame, so that's what we used for that frame of the last week. But I mean, at some point, kaiju battle, I guess, maybe
kaiju battle.
Yeah, that's all we really have to say at this point. I mean, we do know that the reinforcements for the cleaners are on the way. They didn't address that at all last week. Remember 2 weeks ago when they addressed it and they were on the way and they were furiously driving and what's his name didn't shatter it, but like put a serious like dent in his steering wheel basically.
Gris.
Yeah, Gris. It's like, yeah, you guys remember that? At some point, yeah. There's also the spoiler that I got that needs to be addressed, but that's probably not going to be till the last episode. So that's going to be a really weird thing. Well, not weird, but it's going to be something interesting to talk about. I know. I'm giving it away. It's something interesting. Who would have guessed? Can you guys believe that I spoiled my spoiler for you by saying that it's interesting? That's crazy. But either way, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. A strong contender for that still of the week last week was Typhon, just tranquiloing on her on Kathani's portal, but yeah, I landed on the hilarious one first. So what can you do? But that one was still pretty good. Gotta appreciate that kind of villainy. It's right up there. It's Frieza kind of stuff. Gotta appreciate it. But yeah, well, whatever happens here, I can't imagine they will, tease a kaiju battle and it not happening. So, but she's walking off a concussion, which again, seriously, do I need to have the concussion talk again as to stay awake for that one? Tiny PSA once again. But either way, I will say this is coming out on New Year's Day, so people, Happy New Year. Hopefully everybody had a good New Year's Eve if you decided to party and do all that kind of New Year's Eve stuff and maybe yell at Ryan Seacrest on TV or whatever you chose to do. But whole new year of anime coming at you. We're still wrapping stuff up from this season. We have a bunch of shows that we're looking at doing, so it will continue. I don't know if we got our year in review thing done because we haven't caught up on a couple other things, but I do want to do a year in review thing here. So if it didn't come out on Tuesday, it will come out at some point in January, just so we can talk about it and like what we did last year, and what will be coming this year, that kind of thing. And as I mentioned last week or yesterday in MHA, it's one more opportunity to make fun of Guild Receptionist. So, and Faraway Paladin now, because yeah, we watched it. We watched season 2. We'll talk about it in that video. But either way, as for a good show, a very good show, Gachiakuta, let's push some buttons and get going here. So people on Patreon, will see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube for the discussion and review. If you're looking for the opposite, it's linked all over the place. You guys know where to find it. So yeah, so let's get going here. So push some buttons and get going. So here goes something. In Team Redundancy Team, I need to stop saying get going before I lose my mind. So, well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. This was certainly a thing. We got the backstory on her and how she met Typhon. Even if it was very brief, it did what it needed to for a character that no longer exists. Yeah. So, real bummer how she went out, but it was what it was, and we got a little bit more explanation as to how her hair works and whatnot. And I mean, eventually it would regrow. So you know what I mean? When you go all out, and if you literally burn through your hair and that's catalyst, then that is what it is. But yeah, that's kind of a neat way to have a character's like limiting factor is like, okay, well, it's her fuel source. That's the easiest way to put it. When she runs out of hair, she can't do it anymore. So
Yeah, and like Rio was saying in their fight, isn't that she actually has any sort of time limit on her power. The reason why she kept stopping the power was just because she would stop it just before it started actually damaging her hair.
right. So that makes sense. That way, you know, the more hair you have, the more you could do something like this in a life or death situation like she was. So that makes sense. Is usually it's kind of like an overheat mechanic in a way, and then when you go past the overheat mechanic, it's like, okay, now you're just kind of like, taking your life force, or in this case, burning out your hair or whatever it is. So that's kind of a neat way to have a character do something like this. So
yeah, it's like if you had you mentioned overheat mechanic. It's like if, say, like in Halo, one of the most iconic games with heat mechanics is the freaking plasma rifle in that. It's like if you had a plasma rifle, but the ammo. It's like if you had a plasma rifle, but the freaking. It could keep firing when it was overheated, but the ammo only went down when it was overheated.
yeah. And then eventually, you just didn't have a gun anymore. In that case, but yeah, this was very cinematic. I'd appreciate everything about that. Electricity, definitely always a bitch. I will say what's kind of interesting about this is it functioned even though they were all technically grounded. You know what I mean? So we gotta kind of give that to Giver Power because they're on stone. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you can't get hit by a lightning bolt if you're standing on like a rock or something. But still, they're reasonably grounded. So there's kind of like some weird science-y shenanigan here that somebody who knows more about electricity could probably explain this.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, you could still be electrocuted while you're grounded like this. Like it's not going to do as much because most of the electricity is going to just diffuse into the ground.
Yeah, this is pretty much just your body is the middleman, and you're taking the electricity damage, but it's not cycling through your body repeatedly as it would be if you were getting electrocuted without any kind of ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's generally the real danger to being electrocuted is if it's got nothing else to dissipate into, then it's just going to keep looping through your body and causing more and more damage and getting more and more powerful.
Yep.
Of a current.
Right.
But even a small current is enough to really screw with you because, once again, your body runs off of electricity. So any sort of external electricity really fucks with your ability to control your body.
Yep. So that was kind of an interesting thing to think about for that. We have a Rona situation. Don't know how they got out, but classic split personality, kind of situation. So it'll be interesting to see.
I likened it to Corona immediately because, once again, we already know authors are friends. She takes a lot of influence from Soul Eater and stuff like that. But also, it's a similar situation just in general of, very timid user and then a sentient, more aggressive weapon.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what their deal is. Obviously, he probably got out, so see you in the future. Obviously, we'll just I doubt we'll see them again this season based on the way things are going, especially with everything that happened here. So very spectacly, very impressive for what that was. This whole sequence here was maybe not necessary, but still kind of like more humanizes the character and stuff like that. So that's fine. But we got something on the Watchmen here and what it could entail, possible other dimension stuff, that kind of thing. Something this kind of reminds me of is like that area in Greek mythology where, for those of you who don't know, in Greek mythology, Atlas the Titan is the being that holds up the world. And the space where he exists is really weird. If you played or watched any of the God of War games, they kind of go into that, and it was pretty like mythos accurate for how that space functioned and stuff like that when Kratos fights Atlas. But I'm thinking that's kind of like this kind of situation. What's going on here potentially? is that kind of space, which it's like alternate dimension and just this being that just exists between the two realms at this point. So it'll be interesting to see like what's going on with the Watchmen and stuff like that. But I'd say it's fairly reminiscent of like Atlas and how Atlas functioned as a being. You know what I mean? So we'll just kind of see. Obviously, it's not like holding up the sphere kind of situation, but like just like the curator or like kind of like the cleaner in the Precipice world in Bleach, something like that. Just like this weird kind of entity that just like in this case like takes everything from you kind of situation. So it'll be interesting to see when we get more on that. But yeah, this was definitely fairly creepy.
Yeah, it's some sort of cosmic being that simply looking at it seems to just like erase you from existence.
Yeah.
But not everyone, because if you remember back in episode 1, Bruto actually does see it as he's falling.
Right.
And he looks at it and somehow still survives, and that's like one of the big questions of the series is why do some people pass the border and other people can't?
Right. Because assuming that's the case, is not every, like as a spherite, if you got kicked off, you know, it was part of their like execution ritual, assuming you see the Watchman on the way down, that just erases you. And then that's why there's not a lot of like random spherites lying around. Other than the fact that, you know, say they survive the Watchman gaze or whatever you want to call it, Ruda got pretty lucky in where he landed. He could have easily landed horribly and just died from fall damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like even if you manage to survive being erased, potentially being erased by the Watchmen as you cross the border, you're still falling from the sky.
Yep. So that's something. But a lot of interesting implications here. And it'll be interesting to talk about this more and look into it, how they might go into it as the series progresses. But it is very interesting narrative to kind of pull. Like, obviously, you have that like Soul Eater connection with the authors and stuff like that. But that's where my head immediately went to, was like, is this like an Atlas situation? That'd be kind of interesting. Is you know, we've seen a lot of like other mythos pulled from recently. In Greece has some of the more interesting mythos and stuff like that, and you know, we saw it with like games like Hades, stuff like that. But you know, it's something that's like very not as much gone into, because the Greek mythos that is usually gone into are the gods, not so much the Titans. You know what I mean? The gods are very popularized, you know, obviously things like Hercules and Zeus and stuff like that. But they very rarely go into the Titan stuff. Like, I don't even remember the last time outside of God of War that Titans were, from me personally, that I've seen. You know what I mean? When Greek mythos is referenced, besides the Disney movie Hercules, where they had the Titans, and they were very not what they were. You know what I mean? They were very like forces of nature and stuff like that, and not like how they were in actual Greek mythos. So it'd be, obviously this isn't obviously referencing Atlas themselves, that kind of thing, but just like it's just like a tertiary thing of like, this is that kind of thing adjacent to a Titan and what they did in Greek mythos. So
yeah, we still don't really know anything about this whole like apocalypse that happened on Earth and that caused the border to form, and like whatever happened with why they had to use the sphere to get out and stuff like that. But it's some form of other dimensional shenanigans that the Watchman is just kind of loitering in, and some indeterminate factor currently determines who it actually lets through.
Yep. So we'll just have to see as we get more into the series, but there's definitely a lot of stuff to get through in this. So, you know, as we mentioned before, they probably have enough material for like 3 seasons at this point, and the author is still pumping them out. Something that did come out recently was like you know how some authors have like their like self-insert character, like, you know, Fuse from Slime is like Guildmaster, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, it looks like her, it has to be your self-insert. It's like, why are so many people like against this? Like, even if the author is like just of anything, if their self-insert is like the main character, what does it matter? If it's a good series, what does it matter if the author puts like a vehicle of themselves in it? Like, who cares?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that whole thing with that character and people talking about insisting that she has to be a self-insert just because it's a female with red hair.
Yeah, which again, that's the other side of the coin. It's like, I mean, at a certain point, you might, you know, the author has red hair right now, like dyed. It's like, so in the future, if she undyes her hair or changes the color, does that mean that if this was a self-insert character, that it's not her anymore? Like, you know what I mean? Or to that end, it's like, or to the other opposite side of that is, just because she looks vaguely like the author doesn't mean that it is. It could just be, well, I want to draw somebody that kind of looks like me, but not be a self-insert. They're all kinds of different things, you know?
Yeah. She's already said in the past, before this whole thing even came up, that well, there isn't like an actual like full-on self-insert the way, you know, like Fuse is literally just, no, Fuse the Guildmaster is Fuse the author, just if he was in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't have like a direct self-insert like that. She's already said that like Rudo is heavily based on herself.
Yeah.
And that Rudo is like the character who is based off of her.
Right. So either way, that's just kind of like one of those weird things, but I don't know. I digress. This whole thing was definitely very interesting for what it was, and very creepy. Gotta appreciate the creepy vibes. I mean, just look at that frame right there. It's unsettling. Just watching somebody get erased is definitely unsettling. But either way,
it is worth noting though that we only see her head get erased, and then like her body falls and crashes back into the trash beast, which either it could be a case of it only erases your head, or because, you know, like her hair is part of one of the things that she likes the most, so that's what gets erased, or she only barely crosses the border. It could be a thing of like she's still in the process of being erased when she falls back out.
Right.
So she doesn't get fully erased.
Yep. So definitely some interesting things to go on there. You know, Kaiju happened at level 3, mind you. So if she can't go to 11, then I'm going to be disappointed. Mention that at the end of the reaction.
Yeah.
But 3 is still pretty big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't really fully know how her power works. Just, yeah, she goes full monster form. And apparently, once again, this is only level 3. And that she can go higher.
Now keep in mind, bro did say you're only 3. When somebody says you're only allowed to have 3 things, that generally means you're allowed to have 3 cookies out of that pile of like 50. You know what I mean? That's like the parent telling the kid, that's what this is. You're only allowed to do 3. You're only allowed to have 3 cookies today out of like the 50 that you got for Halloween or whatever. You know what I mean? That's what that felt like to me. That was the parent saying like, no, you're only allowed to do 3. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no. Bro is the dad of Team Child.
Yep. So that's just one of those things. I think 3 out of 11 is pretty reasonable. You know, is that's all they really needed. And we had the whole I got to point out the whole Vegeta thing earlier, and then we had the whole SpongeBob backing up thing. I mean, come on. got to do the classics from 20 years ago. That's even more than 20 years ago. That was very early SpongeBob. That was like 25 years ago. That's crazy. Where does time keep going, you guys? It just keeps getting deleted. It's crazy. But either way, glad that was a thing. Again, do not sleep off a concussion. Okay? I don't know how she slept off a concussion. Don't do it. Seriously. So that's another PSA. I don't know how she slept off a concussion, but yeah, I'm not going to worry about it, right? So.
Yeah, she's a kaiju. That's how.
Yeah. So either way, that was pretty interesting. We got to see that. Just that whole sequence with them taking them down the trash beast and all the face going on, that kind of thing. The fact that Rio doesn't immediately blow away is incredibly impressive, considering she's like 25 pounds soaking wet. So that was sheer force of will. Very impressive to not get blown out of the trash beast there. But,
Yeah, not many people are talking about that anymore, but that still is one of the weirdest things about this season was them deciding to make her full on freaking anorexic.
yeah, which, I mean, there are a myriad of reasons she could be that way from a objectively logical standpoint based on where they live. You know what I mean? I doubt she's actually...
Like I mentioned this. Yeah, I mentioned this back when we very first started watching the show, was that even in the source material, she's described as being skinny. But in all of the actual manga panels depicting her and stuff like that, she's nowhere near that skinny.
Right. So don't know what's up with that. Maybe it's like a Rangiku thing where it's like in season 3 they should be like, could you just put some weight on her? You know, that's going to be another thing that we got to talk about at the when Bleach comes back around next year. Is well, as you guys are watching this year, Bleach is going to finish up, but as we record, it's still 2025. But the whole Rangiku hair thing, I can't believe that went on that long. It's like, no, she's supposed to be a redhead. She's more promiscuous or whatever. It's like, really? We just let that go on for 20 years. Are you kidding me?
She's been blonde this whole time.
Yep. So that was definitely something. But either way, this was fun across the board. Lots of interesting questions, lots of interesting faces, like right here. I mean, look at all this face going on. Look at this frame. Can you believe this? This was probably hilarious to draw. Are you kidding me? What a great frame. But yeah, either way, it's been one long ass day because, as Engine points out, they're pretty much just still coming back from Penta. You know?
Yeah, they just they just stopped to get something to eat on their way back and got abducted by Zodal.
Yes, so let's recount all the way back to the beginning of this. They say goodbye to Amo. She gets abducted by Gachiakuta, and then it's basically like they went to a theme park for the day. They go to pick your favorite restaurant. I'm not going to start a favorite restaurant war over here by saying Chili's or something. And then they get abducted in the middle of dinner, and then all this happens throughout X amount of hours in the middle of the night, basically. You know? So, one seriously long-ass day. One unbelievably long-ass day. But hey, at least Ruto was able to save the boots. So, there was that. But, yeah, it's...
Yeah, which... seriously long-ass day. Plus, most of them technically died to Amo.
Right.
No, they died to Tomzi while under Amo's control, but still.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's still one of those things where if you think back to it, it's like, you know, a lot of them were, you know, kind of just it was what it was. Am I misremembering this? Did this all happen? Didn't they get first aid or something from what's her name after they almost died? And then they went out for this? Am I just dumb? Am I forgetting the timeline?
No, they stopped. No, they did stop by Alice.
They stopped at
place.
Yeah, they stopped at the clinic, and she was there, and she healed them because that was their like adoptive mother or whatever, the old lady.
Well, yeah, no, that was the whole thing. Is old lady Alice, like they stopped there on their way back to base. They got to like the town that their base is in, stopped for food, and then got abducted by Zodal.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. I had to retrack the steps there. It's like, hold on, am I losing it? It's been like 10 episodes.
They got some first aid for their wounds, but they're still not healed or anything.
Yeah. So that's what happened there. That's what that was. We recounted it. It's all good. We're good. But yeah, so it was one super long ass day, and yep, we ended on a random Ruto passing out and, you know, calling him bro. And he's not your bro, buddy. Or guy or friend. So, yeah. That is
That's
what
your
it
friend,
is.
pal.
Exactly. So, do you think they got a Jeep sponsorship? I mean, there's a lot of Jeeps going around here. You guys think the next Jeep commercial will have Rudo as the spokesperson? Remember when Toyota did that? For those of you who weren't around for that or just didn't see this commercial, Toyota did like a WoW crossover at one point. That was something. Maybe Jeep can do a freaking Gachiakuta crossover. Let's have this.
I mean, WoW did all sorts of fucking shit to try to promote themselves over the years.
Yeah. I mean, how many random celebrities did they have, from Ozzy to Mr. T and,
Mr. T, Chuck Norris.
Vern Troyer, he was one of them. Also, you guys might not know who that is. Mini-Me from Austin Powers, among other places. Where, I don't even know what the term for them is anymore because they keep changing it and one of them's incorrect. So, shorter people. That's the best way I can put it right now. Okay. So, but yeah, they did a lot of stuff, but it's always interesting when they're like very distinct. Like, yeah, those are Jeeps. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So that's another just like random thing that always comes to mind for me is like, man, they're a fan of Jeep. Somebody's a fan of Jeeps around here, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense seeing as like, once again, they're in a freaking post-apocalyptia, so the main kind of vehicles they're going to want to use is things that are meant for like off-roading and stuff like that.
Right. And to be fair, or not fair, but just from like a random just bit of information for me is like, if I ever wrote something like this, my gimmick would be every time anybody went somewhere and there was a crash vehicle, it would be a Ford. That would be my gimmick, is just like, you guys know that Ford stands for found on roadside dead. That's the usual thing for making fun of a Ford. As a Chevy guy, obviously. But that would be my gimmick, is like every crash vehicle would just be a Ford. My gimmick. It's kind of like how the JoJo's author always does inexplicably horrible things to dogs. That would be my gimmick. I would only do inexplicably horrible things to Ford vehicles. That would be my big gimmick, and that might be my motivation to write something, is just for that gag right there. What motivated you to write this? So I could rip on Ford. It's a completely random tertiary side thing. See if anybody freaking notices. It's like, why is it always a Ford that's in the ditch over there? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, once again, people write things for the weirdest reasons. You never freaking know. Like, a guy was just telling you recently, freaking Spy Family started as just the author bored and having a bit of writer's block and deciding to just truck around and do a high school drama just in their spare time, just as kind of a thing to get back into practice.
Right. And look what happened.
And then their editor saw it and said, like, no, wait, you're going to make an actual series out of this.
Right. Exactly.
And that's when he decided to change it away from the high school drama.
Yep. And
make Anya younger.
Right. So either way, another solid episode. I believe this goes to 25. I'd have to fact check that one. So we have, bare minimum, we have 2 more episodes, maybe 3. We'll check that fact and talk about it next week. But I've given all I've had today, you guys. I've got nothing left. I'm just toast. So you got anything else, Sage?
I think that the only other thing we didn't really mention was 2 things, really. Fu spoke of the Nuarde and Bundis like they were the newbies, and he was still he was a more veteran member of the Raiders. But we don't really know for sure. He did speak of it like that. And then also, Engine has a trump card that he was thinking about using but didn't use because Guido woke up in time.
Yeah, that was something I did write down and I forgot to look over there. And that was something he's like, do I have to use this? And he like pointed to his like pouch pocket thing. So what the deal is with that? There's another question mark. And now I've given all I have. So, yeah. I have nothing else. So think about it over the course of the week, and we'll talk about it during the next. Ladies and gentlemen, people YouTube beyond, have you watching. As always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. Gachiakuta, Season 1, Episode 22. So, have a good morning, evening, afternoon. Whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time. And Happy New Year.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.